Yes, I have embarked on a new journey. Well, to be precise, it's actually an old journey, or rather a new journey into the old, or something like that. In any case, it all started with this miniature. No, this isn't the first miniature I've ever painted, or anything like that. In fact, this miniature isn't even part of the first army I ever owned. One day I was standing in front of my personal miniature collection, and as often happens in such moments, I was stuck by the urge to finally finish some of my long-standing projects. And one of these projects has always been very close to my heart. It was the second army I ever seriously collected in the Warhammer 40k universe. The Imperial Guard, aka Astra Militarum. As you can see, I already had my fun with these wonderful miniatures back in the days. But despite various changes in color schemes and reimagined concepts, I was never truly satisfied. And yes, I'll admit, I have never actually played a single game with my Imperial army, even though I always tried to build a proper force. But for me it was always about something more, about a romantic idea of creating the perfect human army in service of the Imperium. Well, what can I say? Life got in the way and suddenly 20 years had passed. And here I am now, looking at this miniature after recently flipping through the codex of the 3rd edition. Lost in nostalgia as is fitting for an old geezer like me. And I remembered why I was so passionate about the Imperial Guard back then. So much so that I dared to start a second army alongside my Green Hordes. Which, to be fair, was quite a big step for a little kid with barely any pocket money. I also realized that I had always loved the versatility of the many different and sometimes widely unique regiments of the Guard. Even though the Cadians were my favorite army back then, I was really into Starship Troopers. So I set out on a true passion project, the Astra Militarum army I always dreamed of. Join me on this fulfilling adventure and enjoy! So I threw myself into the project as if it were my first. I decided to go through everything I still had, everything that could be salvaged, and assemble an army in accordance with the Codex rules. I was fond enough of the step color scheme I had originally designed for my Cadians that I decided to keep it. Since my passion for the Imperial Guard began around the time of the 2nd Codex, whose artwork left a lasting impression on me, I want to honor it by painting a guardsman in that scheme for the first part of this video series. At the same time, I want to discuss with you the approach an artist takes when developing or replicating a color scheme. So let's get started. We start with the brown leather. For this we need a woody tone that resembles dead wood. Next comes the main part of the model, the uniform. We mix a color that matches the artwork. But be careful when implementing this. It's important to note that the artist uses lighting effects that spread across the entire painting. Distinguishing these lighting effects from the underlying colors is not easy at first. It requires a certain level of imagination and good analytical skills to determine which color the artist intended as the base beyond any light and glow effects. For the armor parts we need an olive green shade that leads towards a cool bluish tone. For the black elements, especially the weapons, we use a rather matte black. This color helps define the lower end of the color spectrum we're working with. I deliberately chose not to use a darker black as I wanted to stay true to the color scheme of the reference. To match the cover, I decided to paint the Cadian skin in a relatively light tone. The few silver elements on the model will receive a nice coat of metallic paint. A dark silver is needed here. For the insignia, brass is used as I didn't want to use bright gold and disrupt the overall aesthetic. The weapons have a few red highlights that I definitely wanted to include. A strong mid-tone red is ideal for this. Now that all the base colors have been applied, we can move on to shading. The shade mixture is prepared and applied evenly over the entire miniature. Once the shade mixture has dried, we begin with the camouflage pattern. We start with the brown patches. To do this, we mix a suitable brown and apply it in both rounded and undefined shapes to the uniform. Small lighter dots are added as well. Once the camouflage pattern is finished, we mix the previously used light khaki with our green mixture, which we created for the green armor parts, and layer it over the raised areas of the armor. The highlights of these areas, we mix an even lighter khaki into the previous mixture and apply it to the edges and peaks. For the skin areas, we generously layer our target color. Here we take advantage of the transparency of the layer paint by carefully allowing the stronger undertones of the previous color to show through. For highlights, a lighter skin tone is used. To layer the brown parts, we take a lighter brown and apply it to the rounded areas of the boots. Next we highlight the edges of the brown areas with a beige brown. For the black parts of the model we use a dark blue-gray, which serves as our first highlight stage. The second highlights are applied using a significantly lighter blue-gray. The black areas are finished with fine accents of a very light gray. To accentuate the uniform, we mix a light yellowish beige into our beige mixture, which we created for the uniform, and carefully apply it to the raised areas of the fabric. To properly depict the energy display bar on the weapon, we use a gradient. We create a wet blend with two bright and vibrant red tones to match the painting as closely as possible. That covers the painting of the miniature, but of course we still need to work on the base. Our reference is set in a scenario full of rubble and wartime debris. For this I gathered suitable pieces from old Astra Militarum sprues as well as some rusty wire I had lying around in one of my countless bits boxes. Keep in mind that the color selection for the base elements should match the miniature itself. For the ground of the base I used some texture paint that resembles mud. To refine it I washed the entire base with a dark brown shade, and after allowing it to dry properly I dry brushed it with a light beige brown. To better capture the battlefield's chaos of David Gallagher's fantastic artwork, I found it fitting to add some blood to the base. finally I painted the base rim, and that was the last step of this fun project. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check out the full tutorial on Patreon, where I go into detail about the exact colors and techniques I used. You'll also find numerous video tutorials as well as additional helpful resources there to refine your miniature painting skills and support you on your artistic journey. And to everyone already supporting me on Patreon, I want to express my deepest gratitude. You are the ones who have been there from the very beginning, helping to make Knightshade Studios a meaningful platform for the community, and for that I am forever grateful.